This video is brought to you by our amazing supporters over at Patreon. Hey everyone, it's Ben from Board to Bits, and in this video we're going to be fixing a little bit of a bug that came up in our last video where our audio mixer isn't reflecting our saved audio settings when we first start our game. And did a little bit of research and a little tinkering around, and I figured out that our best place to do this right now is inside of our persistent audio player. Because this is sort of a singleton pattern and this is always going to be at the start of our game, even if we don't start at, say the main menu first scene of our game, say we're trying to work on the levels or something like that. So, inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a system to quickly check, is this the very beginning of the game? If so, let's load up the values that we have for audio and tell our audio mixer to set itself to those values. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new variable inside of the persistent audio player, and this is going to just be a simple boolean, and I'm going to call it init audio, basically to tell us, have we initialized our audio? If this is not the case, then we will do so, otherwise we can skip this. And I'm going to use this in the start method. So we're going to say void start, because the way that we're going to be accessing the mixer won't actually work in the awake method, so we do need to do it this way. If we could simply do it in the awake method, we wouldn't even need this. We could simply do it right when we check the singleton, but for now we're going to need to kind of have a little bit of a workaround. So we're going to say if not init audio, if we have not initialized the audio, and this will default to false, although we can also explicitly set it this way so that whenever we start we know that it's false. So that very first time, we're going to make sure we do this, and then from there we can set init audio to true to know that it's already been done. We don't have to worry about it anymore. In fact, we'll add that down here right now. We'll say init audio. Once we've done this, once we've initialized our audio, we can set that to true and not worry about it anymore. So what are we going to do inside of here? Well, it's kind of similar to what we did in our settings menu, where we're setting this mixer float to a certain value. However, there's a couple of little changes we're going to need to do. The first one is that we're no longer going to be pulling from a slider value, we're actually going to be pulling from those inverted settings values. So we're going to need something like this, but it's going to be a little bit different. I'm actually going to copy this from our settings menu UI. This is that slider to mixer value. I'm going to paste it down at the bottom of the persistent audio player. However, I'm going to change it in a couple of ways. I'm going to change this from slider to setting, and likewise I'm going to rename the parameter here to setting value. And that's important, like I say, because this is inverted, we want to make sure that we're using that proper value. And the other thing I need to do in here is I need to make sure that we're setting this, instead of using just the setting value, we want to use 1f minus the setting value. And we're going to need to put that in parentheses, because of order of operations, we want this to happen first, then the multiplication, and then the final subtraction. So we'll save that there, and this gives us, in the same way that the settings menu, the slider value is converted to the audio mixer value, this will work from our settings, saved settings, to the mixer value. Now in here, we simply need to get access to our mixer again. You'll recall in the settings menu, we explicitly created an inspector variable to plop that in. However, we already kind of have access here. Because we have this audio source player, which is part of an audio mixer group, we can get to the audio mixer via those channels. So we can do that by saying player dot output audio mixer group, which is going to get us to that, in this case, the background music group, dot audio mixer, and that now brings us back to the mixer, so it's basically at that same level that we were here. And now all we need to do is set the float of the appropriate value. So in fact, we can actually copy this right here. This will be a little bit quicker for us. Copy all of that. I can paste it in there. Now I'm not sure why that's staying red. We'll see if this kind of resolves itself in a second. And we're going to set that to the BGM volume of slider to mixer value. However, we're not using the music slider value anymore, and we need to change this to setting to mixer value so that it's reflecting that. There we go, that did resolve itself ultimately. And we need to make sure that this is no longer trying to access the music slider, but rather our loaded settings from our save manager. You'll recall here in our save manager we have this load setting which simply needs a label. And the label, I happen to remember from music, is quote music unquote. So we can apply that. So we can say music However, we do also need to say save manager dot load setting music. There we go. And that now, so this is pulling that music value. We're then converting it to a mixer-friendly value and setting the mixer's background music setting to that value. We can do all of this again for our sound effects. We just once again have to change this to SFX volume, and we need to make sure that this is changed to our effects label, which is actually right in our settings here. SFX preference is just SFX, so we can simply change that there. So relatively easy. Like, this is pretty much the same thing that we did before. We just had to do a little bit of working to get to the mixer, and we had to make sure that we're changing our settings value this time instead of the slider, because we're not on the menu with the sliders in most cases. So with that all in there now, we can jump back here. We can go to our mixer to see if these get changed based on what we had last left our audio at, and we hit play. We see that they do indeed drop down. If we go to our settings, we're at roughly 80% for our music, 40% for our sound effects, and if we change these, if I drop this way down and this up and then save, you see that those respawn accordingly, and if I stop and play again, they retain those values. So that basically covers how we're actually having our audio respond to what are the saved values and having them come right from the start as those saved values. In our next video, we're going to kind of finish up our audio system by having our audio reflect what scene we're on. When we get into our game, we want that music to change. We can also have that music change when we go into our end of level scene, depending on if we've done well or not. We'll cover all that in the next video. In the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.